Welcome to Beyond Marketing, the podcast. I'm Maira Genovese, the founder and CEO of MG Empower Global Integrated Marketing Agency. Today, I'm so excited to be joined by Maya, UK's #1 mental fitness and visualization coach, book author, keynote speaker, and Nike's first ever mental fitness trainer. Maya's journey is striking. She has built a global recognized approach to training the mind, one that has completely redefined how we think about performance, resilience, and visualization. Maya, welcome to Beyond Market Podcast, and I'm so excited that you're here today.
Thank you. I'm also excited. It's a privilege.
I saw you the first time and I was like, oh my God, I got obsessed. It was a TED talk, I think it was shortish.
Yeah.
2 years ago. I know it's just 2 years ago or a year ago. So you were there doing a talk and then you did an exercise. And then I was just like, how I did not know this person before. And then I started following you. And then since then, it's like it became my goal to have you in a podcast.
Oh, here we are.
And now you're here. So it's just incredible. Maya, you're known, as I described you, as a mental fitness and visualization. But who is actually Maya?
Big question. Well, how do you want me to answer that? I mean, yeah, it's funny. Like, those titles are all very exciting and, shiny and fancy. But I guess underneath it all, I'm just someone who is deeply passionate and, well, some would say obsessed with how we can train the brain to think better, feel better, and perform better. For me, my journey was very much through illness and I guess a lot of suffering to get me to where I am. But it gave me a lot of purpose and meaning in my life as well. So each day for me is how can I build that mission of making mental fitness as common as physical fitness, because it's not at the moment, which is a massive issue. Someone who just loves to have fun and go for that challenge in life.
And how was the story? Because I'm very intrigued about like how you started with the mental fitness and visualization. When does this come into a place? And then when you realize the power of the brain?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when I was younger, I was like any young girl trying to just find their way in the world. And I was pretty high achieving. Like, to me, if I could achieve results, I'd feel good about myself. And I also was very competitive in terms of sport. So I was playing at very high levels for badminton. And then when I was 15, I was diagnosed with something called ulcerative colitis, which is an inflammatory bowel disease. But it's incurable. And that was a really weird time in my life because I guess you'd never expect to be diagnosed with such a debilitating condition at a young age. But the nature of the disease is that you are going to the toilet maybe like 30, 40 times a day. I was on about 60 tablets every day. I was wearing adult nappies to school. Anything like walking, drinking, eating, things we all take for granted were just so difficult for me. And of course, you're experiencing insane physical pain every single day. And this was going on for about 5 years of my life. So going through the medical system and trying to work on it, trying to make it better, but just nothing was working. And then I guess I got to a point where I lost any type of strength, physically or mentally, to just keep going. I just couldn't do it. I didn't have the strength to fight any longer. And then I remember in the hospital, this nurse, she said to me, if you weren't laying here, where would you be? And I thought it was a bit of a weird question because everyone had told me what my life was now going to look like. And I believed it because actually these were the experts and I had no other version of, a different life I could see. And when she asked me that question, I remember closing my eyes, and I guess by accident, I was doing what, I now talk about, which is visualization, but I started just seeing myself walking in the hospital hallway. So again, something we take for granted, but I hadn't walked in a long time. And so for me, It was like, wait a second, like, could this be possible again? Could I walk again? Could I go home? Could I eat normal food again? And when I left hospital, I basically got very curious about why did my brain have a different thought in that moment? Why was I able to think, oh, could I walk again, rather than I'm going to be sick all my life? Exactly. And so it's such a tiny moment, but I had seen a change in my thought pattern and I liked it. And so when I got home, I basically read every book. I listened to every podcast or lecture. I got in touch with neuroscientists, researchers, athletes, coaches. But the biggest thing I did was I practiced every day. Every day I would visualize and I would mentally rehearse who I wanted to be, where I wanted to be, how to get healthy. It's now been about 10 years.
How old you were then?
So between like 13 and 18, I was in extreme pain. So at about 18 is when I took it really seriously. Today I'm 28, so it's been about 10 years, but I have practiced mental fitness every single day of my life. And it has allowed me to be sat here having fully overcome the illness with no symptoms, no medication. But it's helped me become the strongest, most confident, bravest, and of course healthiest version of myself. That means I can perform the best I ever have in life and go for my craziest goals, but doing it with so much peace in my heart, strength in my mind, and health in my body. For me, that's a very rich life if I get to be healthy. So yeah.
Wow. And Maya, when did you see that this was working, right? Because you said that you have that thought at the hospital, then you went back home, and then you start training, practicing, reading, studying. In which moment you were like, wow, this is working?
Do you know, I wish I could tell you that I knew the exact moment. And I think the best way to explain it is if we think about when we are trying to work on ourselves, let's say at the gym, there's no like one moment where you're like, wow, okay, all my work suddenly, now I have abs, or there's never this one moment you get it. And I think that's the same with mental fitness, is that it wasn't a linear journey in any way. The first year was grueling, and, I would do stuff and I'd say to my own teacher, like, this is such a waste of time. Nothing's working. I'm still feeling really awful. I'm still in a lot of pain. And I guess it was little by little, tiny actions where I kept showing up and I kept practicing that it accumulates. And when I saw a little bit of progress, I would use that momentum. Sometimes I take a few steps back, but ultimately there was no one moment. I think I had to really trust that I was doing the right stuff. But as I kept going, I started to see more evidence. So sometimes it would be in my symptoms. It would be the way I reacted to something. It would be the way I was more positive about my future. And sometimes they were tiny, but I would hold on to it and I would use that as fuel and evidence to keep going. And so it was a slow but life-changing journey. And I think with anything in life, in any moment you can find something that's going to tell you it's not working, or that it's all going wrong, or there's something to complain about. But at the same time, there's always going to be something to show you that you can be grateful and it is working out and there is hope. And I had to train myself to also notice the progress rather than just always saying that, oh, I'm not seeing anything. I had to notice it. So yeah.
And what makes you not, like, because you're saying, like, it was not a straight kind of, like, path of, like, hey, this is working.
Yeah.
What makes you never give up, right? Because when you're still feeling the symptoms, and then you're saying that you question your teacher, what made you to not give up, to keep going? Because we as a human, sometimes when it's not working on our time, we feel like, or maybe the brain is playing with you, say, oh, this is not going to work. And you have to kind of like play back with the brain saying, look, I'm going to carry on. So was you're kind of working with your brain to not let you to give up, or to, because that's an interesting, like,
Yeah.
you know, kind of like how you manage to carry on, even not seeing the results straight away.
Do you know, I love that you asked me that, because I don't think anyone ever has. And I think the truth is I did give up. I gave up so many times, you know.
Did you?
Yeah, absolutely. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. You know, it isn't working. And I think every time I gave up, I had to find another reason to keep going. And it meant I got stronger. Because I think it can be really hard when you're not seeing any progress. It really can be, especially with your health, because there is a point you have to kind of face reality. And every time I did choose to, let's say, give up or stop fighting, it also taught me that sometimes when we do fight too much, we actually create more resistance. Yeah. And I don't know, you might have heard of, you know, like the book, The Surrender Experiment, and Michael Singer. And even from a leadership perspective, it's so interesting that we try and control every little bit of our lives, especially timelines. So the biggest thing I had to give up on was the timeline of when I was going to get better. Because for me, I was so in a rush. I was like, okay, but I need to feel better tomorrow. And, well, I can't go to university if I don't get better. And there was always these like timelines I was putting on. But when I surrendered to the fact that, well, forget the timeline, just focus on what you can control. And that really helped me. And I think technically surrendering can be seen as giving up, but you're doing it from a place of strength. You're kind of just letting it happen, letting it go. And even for my body, for it to actually heal, I kind of had to surrender it a bit. I had to let it go. I had to give up on trying to control every aspect of it, or to control the pain. Like, I had to build a relationship where I wasn't scared of losing or not getting better. I had to have that fearlessness, which is, I think, why I did and keep going. And I think the other part of that, which I notice a lot as well, is when you are pursuing any type of goal, it is going to get tough.
Yes.
And I think the thing that helps you overcome those harder moments is having a bigger purpose than you, and having something that you can see, a vision you can hold, and a version of yourself that is possible. And so that purpose piece is so important, that you can align to and that you can give back to as well.
And in that phase that you're going through, that you're already outspoken about that mental fitness, or you're just doing yourself, but you're not telling the word yet?
As in, was I telling people I was
Yes,
doing it?
no, because now, yeah, so you're doing it, but you're not kind of like outspoken or like telling people that you're doing this exercise with your brain.
Yeah.
No, you kept it to yourself.
Yeah, I was so embarrassed. As in, like, I think it's so interesting. You know, anything about meditation or training the brain was considered really weird. And it just meant that, you know, being a 16, 17-year-old meditating was actually quite embarrassing. You know, people would be like, oh, that's a bit weird. I remember telling my best friend, and it was like, oh, I didn't really get it. Like, that's not very cool. But I do remember just going through it on my own. But the reason I went through it alone is because I also didn't tell anyone I had the disease. I didn't say to any of my friends or my family what I was going through, partly because the disease, there's a lot of shame to do with it. You know, things like going to the toilet or stuff like that is just not, it's not, I don't know, you don't really speak about it. And I hid that part of my life from everyone, which was horrible.
But your parents, they knew it, that you were doing
knew.
this. And then they were kind of like, how did they feel about it? Of you trying to find a cure in a different way. So they were supporting you with that, or you faced challenge with your parents? Because like, as you said, this is such a new thing, right? So you're like young, meditating, trying to visualize you're getting cured. But at the same time, you have your doctors, I would assume, saying otherwise in terms of you have to take your tablets, you have to take your medicines. So how you combine the both and keep going?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't easy. I think we were all just very scared. And my parents are very action orientated. They only want me to, you know, get better. And so they did everything to
That they
find
could possibly can.
Yeah, and I remember going to like India, to researching in America, trying these new medications that weren't even on the market yet. And I have so much gratitude for my parents for trying so hard to use their own savings and stuff like that to try and help me. And I remember a moment where I basically came to the decision that I wanted to come off all my medication.
So you came with that decision.
And that was very risky. Like, I actually wouldn't recommend people doing that. But I remember reading this book, and I think it's Aristotle who he said, it was a quote from him, and it was like, before you heal from the disease, you have to heal from the medication.
Yes.
And I don't know, I read it like 10 times being like, it's so true, because the more medication I'm consuming, I can't hear my body right now.
And you get the side effects as well.
Exactly. So I was trying to heal from the side effects more than the actual disease. And I remember telling them, being like, okay, I think I'm going to come off it. And my doctors were like, absolutely not. No, like, that's really dangerous, because I was on immunosuppressants as well. Yeah. So you can't just come off that.
No.
But I remember my mind just saying, like, I have nothing to lose. Like, I'm already very unwell with them, so why not just come off them? Interestingly, it meant that I had to be okay with getting worse before getting better, just like anything in life. I love that, yeah. But it was really scary, because I didn't know what was going to happen. But that's where I really doubled down on the mental training, and I worked so hard to build a very strong relationship with my body. But my parents, at the end of the day, they supported it. I was the one going through it, you know, and
they have to support.
Yeah. And I am so grateful for that. But it was not easy, you know, because everyone has different opinions, different decisions. Even the surgery, like getting the surgery seemed like a really good thing. But to me, it's just not what I wanted my life to be. And so that was a really big conversation we kept having as well.
And like, so we're going to talk about visualization, because a lot of people nowadays, they talk about visualization, right? So there's you can change your life by visualizing this, or doing your mood board with your pictures, and then you keep looking at your pictures, and then you're going to visualize that the life you wanted to have. What's the difference of like the visualization that you talk about it versus the visualization that a lot of people talk about it?
Yeah, there are so many misconceptions about visualization.
Exactly.
And I want to speak about them because we're not using it to our advantage. So you're right. Most people will associate visualization with like manifestation.
Yeah,
and I
exactly.
have a vision board, or let me just visualize my goals and then it can happen. The problem with that is that's like 10% of what visualization really is. That is what we may call outcome visualization, where you are thinking about a result or a goal that you want in advance, and it's great for motivation, for belief, things like that. When I teach visualization, I'm doing it from the point of view of this is a neurological mental training tool that rewires your brain so you can think better, feel better, and perform better. And there are actually 5 types. So we've got outcome, we've got process, negative, creative, and explorative. And the reason I encompass this as like mental fitness is because the best athletes, the best entrepreneurs, the best leaders, the best visionaries, they know how to use visualization, but it's only really been a skill that I'd say the top 0.1% have had access to in the right way. And so that's what I really want to change. I want to give people the ability to learn the skill and master it so it becomes a great tool for their mental fitness. And I say this because I also believe in manifestation. Absolutely. I believe that if you can think something, then you can create
Manifest,
it.
yeah.
But they are two different concepts. Visualization needs to be seen as a skill that is for mental training, not just this idea that, oh, cool, if I visualize something, it will come into my life.
Without the training.
Exactly. Because the thing is, some people will say to me, oh, yeah, I created this vision board, at the beginning of the year.
Yes.
But it's this is something to do daily. This is something that we have to invest in, just like our physical fitness. And when you do that, that's when you really take advantage of the skill. And that's when you really see changes in your success, your performance, and your resilience, which is really exciting.
And that 5 ways to practice is in your book, right? The visualization.
Yeah, and it's funny, right? Because look, there are hundreds of books in the world that talk about visualization, but they only talk about one type of visualization. And I remember speaking to one of the best sports psychologists that I'd followed for a long time. And we were talking about the skill of visualization. And he was like, oh, wait, really? I didn't know that. I was like, what? And I guess what I realized and I learned is that from the 10 years of being so obsessed with that particular practice, I learned what most people don't know. And so when it came to writing this book, it was essentially a Bible for if you want to master the skill of mental fitness and visualization, it's everything you need to know. It's all the research, it's all the stories, it's all the applications of the 5 techniques in a way that no one has ever done before, which was really exciting.
And everything you learned by studying, but a lot of things came from you, right? So by your practice. So basically what you have in the book, it is based on research and study, but there is proving that it's you, right? Because you work through that 5 steps and then you cure yourself through that mental fitness and visualization. So it's a great kind of case study because it's your life. You change your life by doing it.
Yeah, and I think I kind of get a bit sick of the wellness or performance space when everyone's telling you what to do,
exactly,
but they don't do it themselves.
Exactly. So that's the point I'm trying to get at, because you did it. You've done.
Yeah, and I still do it. That's
and
the
you
thing.
should do it. Yes, exactly.
I think it's that thing of the journey never ends with it.
Yeah.
And now I use visualization for public speaking or for my goals or for, other things, but it's not health anymore. And the applications are endless. But you're right. I think there's no better way to learn or to get better at something than doing it. Yeah. We can write all we want, you can read all about it, you can listen all you want to, but ultimately doing it is how you're going to get better at it. And I love that every single day I have practice, without fail. Even if it's for 2 minutes, I will still do it. Because I know now without it, life just is not the same.
I'm curious to know what your doctors said to you when they saw that you're progressing without your medicine and doing this through your mental fitness and visualization.
I guess they tried to tell me that it was not permanent and that it might just be a bit of a random remission.
Yeah.
And so just be ready for...
And it's been how long now?
6.5
years.
Yeah.
I've been recently diagnosed with an autoimmune, and the doctor said there's no cure. So there's a way that we can stop, but if you don't do this, and that, it can potentially become something that is gonna deteriorate a lot on your body and where you're living. And then I was just like, okay, live with me. And now I'm just trying to do the opposite, on the sense I will find a way that I can stop this autoimmune to continue to develop. But it's funny, like when you challenge doctors about how this there's no cure, like there must be a cure by, things that you eat, exercise, and, sleep. But for traditional doctors, they see it as a one diagnosis and say, this is it. And you're going to have to go through that path in order for you to be able to live with that autoimmune.
Yeah.
But listen to your story, it just gets me even more like excited about, no, I'm gonna get this done.
I think the most important thing I learned when it comes to autoimmune diseases or anything chronic is that if you are experiencing symptoms or illness for more than 3 months, which is then what we call chronic, like 95% of the time, it is because of something emotional or mental that is going on. And I really saw that in my own life, like the inflammation in my body. It was so much to do with the resentment I was holding from when I was younger, or the insecurities I had. And those mental patterns that we have, they are directly correlated to the physical symptoms that our body expresses. So whether it's back pain, whether it's skin rashes, they are all linked to what is going on in your mind. And it feels like a bit of a secret language, but once you learn it and you understand that, it's so important. So anything autoimmune or chronic, I would seriously encourage anyone to think, well, what are some of those mental patterns that are keeping those symptoms alive? Because it's amazing when you realize how connected it is.
Mine for sure is stress. Is like how to handle stress, especially using this. Do you use Aura as well?
No.
The ring?
No.
Aura's like, I don't know how accurate it is,
Yeah.
but it shows that my body is in constantly stressed.
Yeah, actually,
Constantly.
You know what's really, I'm holding a glass. I'll tell you why I'm holding this. So there's a really important analogy which will change the way you look at stress. So if you take a glass of water, right, it's obviously not that heavy. And if I held this for like a minute, cool, I'll be fine. If I held it for like an hour, my arm would start to hurt a bit and I'd really feel it. And if I held this for a week, my arm would be completely numb. And it's interesting because the actual weight of the water or glass hasn't changed. But the longer I hold it, the heavier and more stressful it feels. And this analogy is so important because it's the same in life. Actually holding something for a long time, even if it's tiny, will affect us so much more than, let's say, having a bit of intense stress and then putting the glass down. And so the longer you hold something, the heavier it is on your body. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So that's where this process of learning to let go is so important. Like, put the glass down.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And then, like, if you have to tell us, like, how to train your, like, because you're saying that you practice every day. Yeah. You practice every day. Is this specifically timing the day that you have to work with your brain? It's like morning, afternoon, night, or does it matter?
Yeah, so I'd say see it in 2 ways. Mental training is proactive and reactive. So proactively, I'll always do something in the morning and in the evening. So in the morning, I will do some journaling and I'll always do my visualization. Now, in the day, obviously life happens.
Yeah.
You know, people might annoy you or you might get some bad news, or maybe it's just a busy day. So in the day, actually, sometimes it's going to be a bit reactive, but it's how you reframe things. It's how you choose to show up. It's going to be your attitude as well. And then at night, I'll also do a bit more journaling, but mainly gratitude, which just allows me to go to bed with a more peaceful mind. So there's no like one specific time I'd really be like, you have to do it then. But the morning is a great time because it sets up your day. And the way to think about it is like, you know, if we wake up, we brush our teeth, we get ready. We might go for a walk or go to the gym. Well, what do you do with your mind? So many of us, it's just autopilot, right? We wake up, check your emails, you think the same, you feel the same, you perform the same. And then we question, well, why is nothing changing in my life? Because you have to bring intention in the morning. You have to be like, you know, who do I want to be today? What does my day look like? What am I going to visualize? How am I going to perform? It gives so much power over the day.
So that means like writing is a good way to train your brain.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And you can write in different ways. So I have 2 journals. My first journal is where I just write out all my thoughts, my emotions, anything that I'm holding on to.
Okay.
But I actually burn that journal at the end of the year. So I don't keep it.
So you burn it?
Yeah, I just burn it.
Okay.
I don't need it. It's just a release.
Okay.
My second journal is where I write all my goals and where I write my gratitude and essentially like the stories I want to tell myself. And so every day I will spend about 10 minutes just writing the same stories. Things like, you know, I'm very grateful for my health, or I'm very lucky to be here, or, you know, what I'm building, etc. And that I keep. So I have about 26 of them at the moment.
Wow.
Yeah, and these are from also like 2020. But I tend to have 2 journals that I will use for writing.
And then like, because like nowadays, and I can tell for myself, like, which I'm trying to change that slowly,
Yeah.
surely, which is wake up in the morning and check your email, as you said.
Yeah.
How bad is that for the brain when the first thing because you're sleeping and then you wake up? So I'm assuming neuroscience, there's a time that your brain is just like waking up and then, you know, trying to, you know, get back to your normal self because you're awake. But then straight away you start seeing news or emails, and that doesn't even allow time for your brain to actually wake up in the way it should be. How bad is that if that's the first thing you do in the morning?
Yeah, so the whole advice, I guess, of like, you know, don't pick your phone up in the morning. The reason it is important is because when you're waking up, your brain is the most suggestive.
Yeah.
Now, what do I mean by that? It's that, think of it a bit like fresh snow. That the first few footprints you make in that snow, they kind of lay the foundation to how you're going to be thinking, how you're going to be feeling for the rest of the day. So if you wake up and like, you know, your brain's fully open and then suddenly you're watching the news, or maybe there's like 3 emails that just feel quite stressful.
You out.
Exactly. You're now going to start your day in that rush, in that urgency, and thinking, oh no, like what's going to happen? The other part of it is, you know, if someone's checking social media, when would you ever wake up and allow like 100 people to enter your room? You never let that happen. But when we're on social media, we see a lot of people, what they're doing, and conversation and thoughts. And so really coming back to this thing that in the morning, your brain is the most suggestive. So as long as you can start to control the first few thoughts or actions that you do, that will just help you to be way more intentional. And a really smart trick is, if you have your phone on your bedside table, put a book over it. So before you reach out to get it, actually you have to touch the book, open, and it will just encourage you to maybe read a page. And I used to do this. And so what I do is I start reading the page, but because I like the page, I keep reading. And actually it means that now the footprints I've put into my brain are really good. So when I look at my phone, I'm less likely to start scrolling or just, you know, waste my energy. Now I actually want to be a bit more positive or efficient or intentional. So yeah, the brain is the most suggestive in the morning. And that's why the first few thoughts or actions or feelings that you create will determine the rest of your day. Even if it's just a few minutes, it doesn't have to be the whole hour with a morning routine. Just think, what's the smallest thing I can do that's going to let me be more intentional in my day?
And is sleep, what's the sleep pattern added into that exercise of the mental fitness? It's very important in order to get it to work.
Yeah, 100%. And the reason is because everything about mental fitness is based on the power of neuroplasticity.
Okay.
And that is the ability for our brains to change. So some of those thoughts, beliefs, emotional patterns we have, these can all change. But neuroplasticity happens at night. So the brain rewires when you are sleeping. So if you struggle with sleep, or maybe you're always in survival mode, you're just not giving your brain the best condition to rewire. And so it's fundamental that you have enough relaxation and enough sleep to let the patterns rewire. And that's why, for example, when I'm working with athletes and they have, let's say, a big match or a game the next day, we'll always do like a performance visualization before they go to bed, where then when they're sleeping, their brain continues to wire on that performance. Yeah.
And talk about athletes. You've been working a lot with athletes recently.
Yeah.
Recently, no, since you start getting your out there with, with the, your thoughts on, mental fitness and visualization. And then you became Nike #1
Yes.
first, which is congratulations. This is just so exciting. So how do you apply that into athletes? So you just gave an example, but like how athletes can benefit from that in the most, powerful way for them.
Yeah, I mean, any champion in their space, whether it's sport, whether it's business, whether it's art, the thing that differentiates the good from the great is, do you have mastery over your mindset? Because at that point, everyone's pretty talented. They're all physically fit. Otherwise, you wouldn't be where you are.
Yeah.
And so the thing that's really going to differentiate them and make them that top 0.01% is the mental game. And any athlete will tell you the same thing. So when it comes to working with athletes, and this ranges from, tennis to running to football to darts, you got to understand who they are for sure, understand how their brain is wired. But ultimately, it's about giving them the skill of visualization so they can apply it in their training, but also in their match play. And it's actually really common in elite sport, but what I'm noticing is the younger athletes have no idea about it. And I think it's a massive problem. So I think to build this resilience, to build that mental strength, the younger you do it, the better. But I work in many different ways, right? So like there'll be some athletes who are very good in training, but can't perform in a competition scenario because maybe the pressure's too much, or maybe their mind starts to play tricks on them. So in that situation, we're working on how do you deal with pressure better? How do you deal with those higher stake moments much better? Then you'll have people who are maybe like top 10, but they want to be top, 5 or top 3. Exactly. So we need to level up their performance, create a better identity. We've got to actually build them into a champion. So much of that is identity work. And then you have a lot of athletes who, because of the world we live in, they then experience anxiety and maybe too many nerves or fears. And so how do you help them come back to the person they really are and to remember the athlete and the champion that they also are? Because it's one thing getting to the top, it's another thing staying there.
It's staying at the top, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's one aspect I love about my work. And then I also love the teams. Team dynamics in sport, but also business is fascinating because individually there's such a role you have to adopt. But then
and how do I apply this? Like you talk about athletes, but like in business, it's like if you talk about leaders, CEOs, CMOs, C-levels, like there's a lot of pressure, but not just in, like for business, it works across the whole business, or just for the roles that is more stress level, or we can apply this to the whole organization?
Yeah, I mean, whole organization.
Okay.
In business, I think what I notice is there's a lot of things like imposter syndrome. There's a lot of negative self-talk. There's a lot of working, but not resting. And that's a really important balance to create. And then there's a lot of moments, like public speaking or presenting, where pressure really starts to consume people. So these skills are all transferable, whether you have just joined the company, whether you're the CEO, and being able to really be intentional with who you're going to be at work really helps you stand out and helps the team stand out as well. And I was speaking to someone yesterday who's like building a culture of high performance, but integrating well-being into it. And I think it's really interesting because well-being in the working world is a little bit general.
Yes.
Is what I'm going to say.
It's true.
And we've got to think more innovatively around it. We've got to be a bit more brave. We've got to be a bit more empowering when it comes to what is the message we're sending of why you have to train the brain in order to be the best performer or the best worker you can be. We don't have that yet.
And do you think this can change culture as well?
Oh, 100%. And I've seen it, I've seen it in instances where Like I'll give you a very small example that really changed the culture of a team. So about 3 years ago, I was working with, they're a market leader in their space. And we were working with this one product team. And I had asked all of them this question in our workshop of, can you write down 3 things that you are proud of and that you're going to celebrate that happened in the last few weeks? And they all just kind of looked at me like, what? What do you mean? And we got into this conversation of like, well, how do you celebrate your wins? And they explained, but when we hit that milestone, when we get our targets. And I was like, that's all fine. But that's kind of like the end of the year. What about in between? What about efforts? What about tiny things that aren't even just about work? What about the fact that you did a hard conversation? And they realized that they didn't have this type of reward system where they were celebrating little wins. And so for that next year, every 3 weeks they had like a stand-up, like a meeting every 3 weeks. And they would always, each person had to stand up and celebrate a win. And when I came in at the end of the year, it was just amazing.
How that changed.
Yeah. And just the way that they treated each other, they celebrated each other. And it wasn't just for the outcome, it was for the efforts. And this really helped them build momentum, because what it meant is they were so much more inclined to go for the goal, even when it got harder. So when you celebrate those little wins culturally, individually as well, you are creating more momentum to go for the bigger goal. And you could really see it. You could see it in the energy, you could see it in the interactions, and you could see it in the gratitude that they all felt. And yeah, I'll always remember that because it was such a big change.
That's amazing. Because like there's this misconception of like mental health, mental fitness, right? Especially in a workspace. I'm talking about my own business. Like we talk a lot about mental health, or we need to be careful with the mental health of this person.
Yes.
We needed to go slow because that person not going through, a good phase for mental health. We don't talk in business about mental fitness.
Yeah.
And what's the differentiation of mental fitness and mental health, and why both are equally important?
Yes. So mental health and mental fitness are 2 different things. So the way I would look at this is mental health is just like physical health. If you've got a body, you have physical health. So in the same way, if you've got a mind, you have mental health. And now it can be good, it can be bad. It's pretty black and white. If we think about what physical fitness is, that is when you are maintaining physical health, right? So you're going to the gym, maybe you're doing yoga, dance, running, whatever it is. In the same way, mental fitness is the active and proactive maintenance of good mental health. So this is where the question of, well, what do you actually do to train the mind every day? You know how to physically train the body, but what do you do to train the mind? And it's also worth mentioning, mental illness is just like physical illness, right? That's where we need to go to maybe a doctor, get professional help, maybe medication, whatever it is. But then you also have mental weakness. So just like how you have physical weakness, where maybe you're tired, you're injured, things like that, mental weakness is human. Sometimes we don't feel as good. Sometimes we've just had a breakup, so we're not as sharp. But by using your mental fitness tools, you can come up again. You can get to mental strength. And these labels matter because what I found is when you talk to people about mental fitness, it feels more empowering.
Yes.
It's more action orientated. You don't have to have something wrong with you to invest in your mental fitness. Whereas I think mental health has a little bit of a narrative that to talk about it is
you have to be ill.
Yeah, you have to be going through anxiety. You have to be unwell. But actually, I think mental fitness is the coolest, sexiest, most important thing any of us can do if we want to think, feel, and perform the best we ever have.
Maya, you're just 28.
Yeah, I mean, is age just a number?
It's a number. Yeah, no. But I mean, when I say you're just 28, it's just because I think you have so much to give, so much to tell people. And then it's like, I'm glad that you're very young because I'm like, as you said, you're still practicing every day and learning every day. So I think you what the work that you're doing and how you're kind of putting your work out there through your book, through your social media, and then teaching all of us the importance of mental fitness, something that, again, is not everyone that talks about or knows about it. It's just fascinating. Can we try to do an exercise?
We can.
Let's talk about, like, I can tell what I'm feeling now is like, if we can do something like I said about stress and being tired, traveling a lot. If you would give an advice from you for exercise for my mental fitness, or for everyone that's listening to us now that is feeling the same, stressed, overwhelming, tired, what the exercise will look like.
Ooh, okay. Let's see. To be fair, I think if people are, let's say, new to mental fitness or visualization, I'd say one of the best exercises to do is a visualization for character. And what I mean by that is we have the power to choose our attitude every day. And it's one thing to say, okay, I choose to be calm. It's another thing
to be calm.
Yeah, to actually feel it in the body, to see it, and to know who that is. So this is one that I think people can do in the morning. Or maybe you are feeling a bit tired in the afternoon and you're like, oh, like, I'm so bored, I don't want to show up. It's a great way to reset. So if you want to close your eyes. Okay, and just take a moment to think, right, who do I want to be today? How do I want to show up? It might be confident, it might be calm, it might be empathetic, it might be relaxed. And I want you now, in your mind, to create a mental image of that. So if you were this person today, how would you embody that? What would your body language be? So maybe shoulders are back, head is held high. And I want you to now mentally rehearse how you would show up in the world. So how do you walk into a room? How do you interact with people? How do you perform? But you're doing it with this calmness or this confidence or this resilience. What does that really look like? Start to practice it in the mind and body. Show your mind and body, this is how I want to walk, how I want to talk, how I want to act. Good. Now take a moment and just come into the body. And just ask yourself, what do you want it to feel like? What does confidence feel like? What does safety feel like? What does calmness feel like? And just soften the shoulders, unclench the jaw, lighten the eyes. Fill every single cell with that state of being. Good, and let's take a nice deep breath, breathing in. Exhale. And just commit to that vision you see, that state in your body. And gently, you can open the eyes.
It really works. It feels light, like I feel my body lighter now. Like I just want to be like this.
Yeah, it's
Just
funny because
like
sometimes I do this and people
Yeah.
obviously fall asleep. And
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
just wanted to be like this now.
yeah.
But the part that I think it's felt the most is when you asked me to feel my body,
Yeah.
because I normally don't feel my body.
Yeah, and this is the thing I love about visualization is that it's about engaging all the senses. You know, what you can see, what you can hear, what you can taste, what you can feel. Because our nervous system is so linked to our mental fitness. There's no point you acting confident, but your nervous system is like shaking.
It's shaking. Yeah, that's like when you said feel your body, my body was shaking.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, why my body's shaking?
Yeah, because we hold so much in the body. It's like a sponge. And it's really important to even just relax the shoulders, unclench the jaw. Like, we're all quite tight in different areas because often we think we're under threat or something's going to go wrong. We're in that survival mode. And so when you can really engage, what's happening in the body, and you know, what does calmness feel like?
Yeah.
What does confidence feel like? What does joy, gratitude feel like? And you can see it in 2 minutes. it just resets
It
you
just
completely.
resets. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel the body was just like, wow. Maya, what can I say? Thank you so, so much. And then, like, where people can find you to, learn from you is your book, your social media. What else? Where else can we go to learn more from Maya?
Yeah, good question. So yeah, book is great if you're a reader or you like to listen to the audiobook, etc. I'm a very like in-person sort of girl. And a big part of this is how do we make mental fitness physical as well. So I do events in London where they're called Mental Fitness Live. So this is where 200 people come together and you all train your mind, but it's a bit like a house party.
Okay.
So be ready to no candles, no yoga mats. It's very intense, but in an exciting way. Instagram, LinkedIn, always very happy to answer questions or hear people's thoughts. I think it's a conversation that needs to be debated.
100%. 100%. Thank you so much. And everyone that's listening today is just like, wow, what a podcast we had today with Maya. So I hope you have, first of all, learned something new, because there's a conversation we never had here on the podcast. So I think it's just like a great, episode for us to, to learn how to, training our mental fitness and visualization in a way that only, I would say, Maya can do it, and through her own experience and through her own issues and how she overcome that through mental fitness and visualization is just so inspiring, so exciting. So thank you so much for everyone that's listening to us today. So if you're not following us yet, please make sure you do on Amazon, Apple Play, Spotify, and YouTube. Maya, thank you again.
Thank you.
What a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time and for sharing with us so many wisdom. Thank you so much.
Thank you.